This is the Incorporation of America, chapters 24 through 28 to 29. This is going to go a little even beyond, the entrepreneurs that from the late 19th into the 20th century. So let's get started. An essential question here should be, well, industrialization increased the standard of living and the opportunities of most Americans, but at what cost? And it's a good thing to look at. What was the price of this? So what were the causes of rapid industrialization? First, the steam revolution in the 1830s and 1850s, steam-powered engine, steamboats, mentioned with the railroad, steam-powered factories. Another way to power the industrial motor, I guess is the right word to use. The railroad is going to be the first really big business in the U.S. It's going to fuel this growing economy. It's going to be a magnet for financial investment from banks and also the government, which is going to cause a whole bunch of other problems. It was the key to opening the West and aided the development of other industries. And this is going to explode, the railroad and other things, after the Civil War. The Civil War is a disruption, remember that. It's going to be technological innovations, the Bessemer and open hearth process for steel, which is going to be huge. Refrigerated cars for meat processing and food distribution. Thomas Edison, this wizard of Menlo Park, New Jersey, an inventor of many things, notably, but not exclusively to, the light bulb, phonograph, motion pictures. His contributions to electricity and electricity into homes, it's going to go way beyond just those that are put there. So there's Edison, this wizard of Menlo Park. There's the first light bulb. He went through 6,000 different designs and different filaments. The phonograph, of 1877. There's the original home phonograph on the top. It's going to lead to the record player. Vinyl. I know vinyl's making a comeback. These petroleum-based lacquered records where you have a needle and being able to bring forth sound. The Ediphone or dictaphone, which is going to for people to be able to record what they're speaking and turn that into typing. There's the dictaphone there. And the motion picture camera. Alexander Graham Bell, the telephone. Alternate current. I'm having a good day reading today. George Westinghouse. It's important you'll be able to move electricity over far distances. There's a Westinghouse lamp ad. The airplane, Wilbur Wright, Orville Wright. December 7th, 1903 is the first airplane flight in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Later on, the Model T automobile by Henry Ford, who wanted to pay his workers so they can afford his product. You look at the price and cost of sales. I know we're moving ahead, but you can't have a conversation about these giants of industry without putting Henry Ford at the tail end. The 10th millionth Ford, it was selling at $295 for Model T. All these patents granted from the 1790s are only 276 patents issued. Starting from 1850, look at the astronomical growth of patents per decade. You can pause and look at it there. In the 1990s, there was 1.19 million patents issued. Other causes of rapid industrialization: unskilled and semi-skilled labor in abundance coming from other countries, immigrants to the East Coast from Europe and the West Coast from Asia. Abundant capital to invest in new businesses, not only from private banks, but the government had abundant capital that they would also help invest, especially in the railroads, giving land grants, helping with loans, other kinds of things. More so private industry, though. New talented group of businessmen or entrepreneurs and advisors. We'll look at some of these individuals. A market growing as the U.S. population increased. As more people came into the country, immigrants became Americans, a larger market there were for goods and services. A government willing to help at all levels to stimulate economic growth and, on the dirty side, to pad their own pockets. abundant natural resources throughout the vast continental United States, from oil to coal, different types of iron ores, timber, you name it, to be able to fuel the industrial economy and make the products of the Industrial Revolution. So there's a new business culture that's going to emerge, and the government's position and the idea about business as laissez-faire, the ideology of the industrial age, in other words, means leave alone, hands off the economy, hands off the individual government, back off. The individual as a moral and economic ideal. Individuals compete freely in the marketplace. They believed the market was not man-made or invented. It was natural. And there was no room for government in the market. Now, a lot of these principles look good, but maybe the last one today in the 21st century to say there's no room for government in the market. We're going to see where there's going to be problems, corruption, unfair business practices, so maybe government interference in the market. In some instances, you'll agree, are necessary. Some of you may think that it's not enough. Some of you may think government intervention has gone way too far. That's up to you to decide that. Social Darwinism. Herbert Spencer, a British economist, he was an advocate of laissez-faire, and he adopted Darwin's ideas from the origin of species to humans and natural selection, which is the survival of the fittest. Well, the survival of the fittest in the economy. If you're more fit, you're going to be more successful. You're going to make more money. That ties in the whole idea of the Protestant work ethic. Some more Social Darwinism in America by William Graham Sumner in his publication of Folkways in 1906 believed that individuals must have absolute freedom to struggle, succeed, and fail. In other words, you should have the freedom to succeed. You should also have the free to take risks and fail. And that argument is that someone's failure is someone's opportunity. Someone goes bankrupt, you buy stuff on the cheap, you start over. That's part of that idea. That I don't know if it's pure capitalist ideal, but I guess you could say that. Therefore, the state intervention to reward society, I mean state, federal government, state government, local government, to reward society and the economy is futile. So if you come in, if the government interferes, this absolute freedom to struggle, succeed, and fail will be altered, and therefore the economy will be altered unnaturally. Now, is this the American dream? This whole Protestant or Puritan work ethic? Look at Horatio Alger. I think that's how his last name is pronounced. There's 100+ novels that had to do with this. Self-reliance, working hard, playing by the rules. If you work hard, you're going to succeed. This idea of the American dream. This self-made man. Is this idea of a self-made man a myth or not? Some people question it, some people don't. Some people say, no, it's not a myth. All depends on how you look at it. New type of business entities, the pool. Not a swimming pool. Where all these different resources will come together. The people that should be competing are actually working together to protect their industry. And the result of the pool would be the Interstate Commerce Act, where the Interstate Commerce Commission is created to deal with these issues. Then the trust, who came within that idea, is John D. Rockefeller. Another word for trust back then, guys, was monopoly. So don't get confused. The 19th century definition of a trust was basically what we today would call a monopoly, where someone controls all of everything. And that would be Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company, where he basically controlled 95% of the oil market. That's pretty much total domination. There's a political cartoon to give you how much the Standard Oil Trust had control. So a trust would be in two ways, or a monopoly. Horizontal integration, which we'll look at in a second, would be John D. Rockefeller and Standard Oil. Or vertical integration, which most noted by Andrew Carnegie and U.S. Steel. Also Gustavus Swift with meat packing. He would have basically a monopoly over the whole thing. And we're going to look at a chart in a minute that can show a monopoly. We'll just look at iron and steel production, how is just going to skyrocket by the 1890s, and just within 25 years, it's going to be unbelievable the amount of tons, metric tons, or actually raw steel in tons. So the new type of business entities, if you look at the bottom, 1 through 5, the different steps in petroleum production. You have production of raw materials, what's pumped out of the ground. Then it's transported to the refineries, which is 3, and they're processed in the refinery, crude oil into kerosene, lubricating oil, eventually be gasoline when it becomes the cars. Next, you got to transport the finished products to a retail store and then sell to a consumer. Where Rockefeller is going to control this is going to be in the processing. That is horizontal integration. Okay? That's where he's really going to have the monopolies in processing. Okay? Carnegie and steel, if you start with steel, getting the raw materials and then producing the steel and then transporting it and get it to market, he's going to basically be able to control a huge amount of this, of all the steps of making steel. Not necessarily transporting it per se, but of making steel. So that's the difference between horizontal and vertical integration. Look at these different mergers in the 1890s to 1910. It's pretty huge. The new financial businesses, and the broker will be John Pierpont Morgan. He's going to have the money. If he has the money, he can finance different kinds of industries. He's going to look at industries where he thinks he can make money, and he'll be the broker. He'll put in money, invest money in the form of stocks to be able to invest and reap profits off of businesses. And there's Wall Street from 1867 on the left, 1890 on the right. The reorganization of work, Frederick Taylor and the principles of scientific management, is going to lead to the assembly line eventually that Henry Ford's going to perfect. The percentage of billionaires in 1900, what did they do? It was all railroads in 1900. By then, it's going to be in finance, steel, oil. Notice that the railroads are no longer there for billionaires. It's going to all get broken up by then. There's the protectors of our industries. I love this political cartoon. You'll see on the top all the giants of the industry. We have this raft or whatever platform being held up by the workers underneath that, being oppressed by these so-called protectors of our industries. You can pause and look at that a little more. It's pretty revealing. The bosses of the Senate. Who are the real bosses of the Senate? Are they the political bosses, or are the ones that control the trusts and the big money? Pause and look at that more. The robber barons of the past. Look at the top left versus what they have for the modern day. It's an interesting one. You can take a look at that. Cornelius, the Commodore Vanderbilt, is in his late 60s turning all of his money from steamboats and going to railroads, knowing that's the next big thing. And he's going to set up a huge control, monopoly over railroads. And he's going to do it very ruthlessly. And it'll be taken over by his son, William. Some of the things about, the public trying to regulate the railroads. Well, the public be damned, and what do I care about the law? Ain't I got the power? In other words, these individuals thought they were, above the law. And for a while there, they were. This whole idea of the gospel of wealth that came from Russell Conwell, that wealth no longer looked upon as bad and viewed as a sign of God's approval. Christian duty to accumulate wealth, that whole Protestant work ethic again. And they should not help the poor. It's survival of the fittest, man. You can't make it, you can't make it. A little bit crude. Well, Carnegie's going to take it at a different level, a little bit differently. Well, of course, he's going to think the Anglo-Saxon race is superior. You got to throw that in there. The whole idea of the gospel of wealth that he wrote in 1900, we'll take a look at that a little bit in class. Inequality is inevitable and good. Okay, so we can create rich and poor in his mind. Wealthy should act as trustees for their poorer brethren. In other words, the wealthy were responsible to help the poor. And I think that's going to really influence him with his philanthropical acts after he sells Carnegie's steel to Rockefeller. That he's definitely going to put that money to giving to others. Regulating the trust, first Munn versus Illinois, the Supreme Court said that states can regulate commerce within their states. It's going to get reversed by Wabash, St. Louis, and Pacific Railroad Company versus Illinois. It's going to cause them to have Congress to have to pass the Sherman Antitrust Act, where commerce through the states can be regulated, but it has to be in a big way. Okay, if it's putting a restraint on overall trade. Okay, and there has to be a rule of reason. Well, what is the reason? Well, U.S. versus EC Knight Company is going to basically cut down the power of the Sherman Antitrust Act, where they'll say that actually manufacturing is not is not commerce that can be regulated under the Sherman Antitrust Act. So there's going to be a lot of different businesses that I wouldn't say get around, but won't apply to Sherman. Here's the relative share of world manufacturing in the U.S. in 1880s, 14.7%. By 1913, you're talking 33 years, not a long time, is going to be more than double. 32% of world manufacturing output, be the largest in the world by 1913. That's the eve of World War I. After that's even be bigger. And are these companies today, these mega world operations, are they the modern robber barons? Which is a good question. That's it for this one. Until next time, thank you.